What's up, world? You're tuned into 423 FM. You already know we've got you covered with your daily dose of celebrity drama. Now let's get into it. Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back to the 423. As avid fans of the Joe Budden Podcast already know, there's some serious beef going on between Joe and Spotify. If you'll recall, the retired rapper signed a deal in 2018 to make his podcast exclusive to Spotify. And in the 2 years since, the show's been number one, or at the very least, in the top 20 the entire time. Now, Joe and his crew are leaving the streaming service because they couldn't come to terms on a new deal. Spotify said it offered Budden a significant raise that reflected his market value, saying, "Unfortunately, we could not come to terms, and we respect his wishes to find a new home for his show." Joe tells a similar story, though a very elongated version, on the most recent installment of the Joe Budden Podcast, saying that the company didn't want to offer him a raise that reflected just how much he's given to the company over the last 2 years. Since acquiring the JBP 2 years back, Spotify has spent hundreds of millions of dollars acquiring podcast companies such as Gimlet Media and The Ringer, and committed more than $100 million for exclusive rights to Joe Rogan's popular podcast. Because of this, Joe thinks Spotify simply used him as a guinea pig for this larger strategy, accusing the company of not supporting him. He said, "Spotify never cared about this podcast individually. Spotify only cared about our contribution to the platform." As Joe explains on the podcast, once he signed the initial deal with Spotify in 2018, all of his bags elsewhere started getting much bigger. He didn't give specific numbers, but says he was getting millions at Revolt, millions for his interview series The Pull-Up, and millions for Love and Hip Hop. But he spent most of his time and energy doing the podcast, which was his least lucrative venture. He also says that Spotify approached him 8 months into their 2-year deal trying to renew, which told him what he already knew, that their show was extremely profitable. So, once he waited out the 2 years and still didn't get offered what he thought to be worth his time, him and the rest of the crew decided to go in a different direction. There's no word yet on where the podcast will end up going, but I'm sure Joe, Rory, and Mal have companies lined up to give them money, so I wouldn't be surprised if there's already a better contract signed and waiting to be started once this bid with Spotify officially ends. Following this new episode of the podcast dropping and everyone talking about Joe's beef with Spotify, Charlemagne the God chimed in to suggest that Joe may be the problem here and not the other way around. He said the following on The Breakfast Club.
I listened to the whole thing, not the whole podcast, but I listened to that whole rant. It starts around the 64-minute mark. But I mean, it sounds to me like Joe Budden is a person who knows his worth, but doesn't know how to properly negotiate it. Because if you keep doing deals with various corporations and you keep getting trash ass deals, that's on you. Like things like vacation days, bonuses, all of that has to be negotiated in your contract from the beginning.
Shouldn't that be his manager or his agent or as an attorney? You know, shouldn't they be looking out for his best interest, especially somebody who's done this rodeo before that knows that? I mean, I know my attorney has been through this before, so she's helped a lot. And, you know,
Yeah.
shouldn't it be that? Like, you know, there's certain things that I might not know to ask for, but that's what I pay her for, right?
Yeah, and also too, when I hear when I heard Joe like comparing his show to like, you know, Spotify signing Gimlet for hundreds of millions and The Ringer for hundreds of millions and Paracaps for hundreds of millions, I think it's very important to note that they got that money from Spotify because they are actual networks with tons of IP. Those networks have a bunch of shows and other content, a bunch of staff that knows how to make those shows. You can't compare your one show to a whole network.
Yeah, but it's one of the biggest. It's one of the biggest podcasts out there in I don't want to say urban, but our thing. Not this. He should be getting a lot more money than he's getting though.
I'm not saying he shouldn't get a lot of money. What I'm simply saying is you can have the number one show on Spotify, but one of those networks might have 6 shows in the top 10. You know what I mean? 10 shows in the top 20. You have one hit show.
I didn't hear the podcast. How much does he say he's getting?
Oh, I don't know. He didn't say no numbers.
He ain't say no numbers.
I don't know.
He was just comparing it to the numbers that are out there for like The Ringer and, you know, Gimlet and other stuff like that. But like I said, you have one hit show, but that network, Gimlet or The Ringer, might have 10 shows that are all hits, 10 shows that are all solid. So all I know is that if you keep having the same issues with various companies because it was the same thing at Complex, It's probably not them. It's probably you, Joe. So listen to all the kids out there. You may know your worth, but you have to know how to properly negotiate it. But hey, what do I know? I'm just a man who's in the final year of his contract. My deal is up in December. So what do I know?
Another party who chimed in is Crystal, who's had some podcast beef with Joe Budden in the past, and she was clearly very delighted at the fact that this situation was happening because she tweeted, "The same useless dude who tried to tell me I signed a bad deal is leaving Spotify because he signed a bad deal." In response to this, Joe decided to retweet some fans I'm assuming he agrees with. One person retweeted Crystal's tweet and wrote, "I don't think folks know what they're talking about. Joe Budden didn't sign a bad deal. He wants a better next deal per his value, and Spotify didn't offer one. He honored his contract and now he's a free agent. Reading comprehension is key." Another said, "What's funny about that Joe Budden-Crystal situation is he clearly stated on many occasions that they could have got the bag with almost any other DSP, but he went with Spotify to get tangibles. The bag def wasn't as big, but he walked out knowing his podcast's full worth." And Budden replied, "It ain't for everybody." So, Joe's made it very clear that he's not getting crumbs at Spotify and he didn't sign a bad deal 2 years ago, but he expects to get a hefty raise since proving his and his podcast's worth. And that isn't what was offered to him. It's going to be interesting to see where they end up going next because it seems like every big podcast deal we've heard about over the past couple years has been with Spotify, and they kind of paved the way for that. Anyway, I want to know what you guys think about this. Where do you think that Joe, Rory, and Mal will end up going come September when the podcast is no longer on Spotify? Leave your thoughts down below in the comments, subscribe to the 420 for more videos, and if you like this one, just give it a quick thumbs up. That is it for today. I will see you guys next time. Bye.